Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and today we have a discussion with Jim Bacchi. He's an audio engineer, a musician. He plays in the following bands: Fuzzbubble, the Tikiyaki Orchestra, and Hitman. He's had quite the career, so I hope you tune in, enjoy the discussion. But before we do that, let's look at some upcoming programming on the channel. Check out the first episode in This Is Power Pop, where the panel looks at the first Raspberries album from 1972. Next month, we look at the Plimsouls. In October, the band Fountains of Wayne. Todd, Armando, Davy, and I looked at ABC's legendary album, The Lexicon of Love. This 1982 debut album by the English pop band ABC set the world and our panel on fire, so please check it out. Next month, we will be taking a look at Beauty Stab from 1983. Also, Tom Fox joins me soon to take a look at our top 2 favorite tracks from the first 4 Morrissey albums. So without any further ado, let's get to Jim Bacchi and to our discussion. Hey, this is Grant with Grant's Rock Warehouse, and today I have a special guest, Jim Bacchi. And as you saw the intro, I've already given him an introduction, but we're going to have a general discussion and just, well, basically shoot the shit. Jim, how are you today?
I'm good.
Excellent. The whole tiki thing. Now, I remember in the 90s, the whole Ultra Lounge. Remember Capitol had all those Ultra Lounge CDs out?
Oh, yeah.
Which were fabulous.
Yeah.
And I was totally into it. So the whole tiki thing that you're doing, how different is that from the whole Ultra Lounge thing or the whole lounge music thing?
Not at all, really. The tiki thing started. The guy who does this thing called Tiki Oasis, this guy Otto von Stroheim, he started a fanzine in the early 1993 or so called Tiki News. And it was just basically about all of that culture from the 60s where everything was tiki, tiki cocktails, tiki bars, tiki restaurants. And a lot of these restaurants were kind of dying and, getting bulldozed and whatever and closing. And so they used to, him and Sven Kirsten, who wrote the Book of Tiki later, Otto started having these parties when he lived in Venice, California. And they would buy these cheap ass, tiki mugs they were vintage at the thrift stores for $1. No one wanted them. It was all, basically culture that had been thrown away and forgotten about. And he started looking up these restaurants and look, oh, that one's still open. Let's go to it. And he would have these tiki parties. They would just mix Hawaiian punch and a bunch of rum. And a couple of these really key LA guys showed up. Jeff Berry, who wrote all these books. He reverse engineered all of those original cocktails from back in the day. And he became a famous author for that. And then, they got into the tiki thing. And then Otto put out this fanzine called Tiki News. And they would talk about the old restaurants and the old music, Martin Denny, Arthur Lyman, and that whole culture of basically our parents,
Right.
And he kind of started this little subculture. Then he started doing this thing called Tiki Oasis in 2000. And it was an event where it was at a small hotel. People got there, they had bands. And then Surf was part of it. And then, of course, that Ultra Lounge, Combustible Edison was a new band. And all of those lounge, the big band craze, it was all kind of part of it. And it kind of snowballed from there. And now it's this giant thing with, the millennials getting into craft cocktails. And tiki cocktails are the original craft cocktails. They had sometimes 12 ingredients, and they were secret recipes. And Don the Beachcomber and Trader Vic and inventing the Mai Tai and all this stuff in the 30s, so it's just kind of mid-century or Americana. The GIs coming back from World War II, like my dad, that were in the Pacific Rim, and they came back to places like where you live in Ohio and said, I want to put a tiki bar in my basement bar. And it became the theme of basement bars and backyard parties. All, post World War II is when it kind of boomed. So, and so the tiki cultures, from when Otto started, the resurgence of it in the 90s, it's all of a tribute, paying homage to that mid-century era of, escapism.
Mm-hmm.
Is what it is. And now, God knows, we need escapism now more than ever, because the fucking real world is a shit show.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a shit show.
So
did you always like that type of music, or I mean, was it because of your parents? Or I see my parents, well, it's the same thing. All I ever saw when I was a kid was Lawrence Welk. I mean, it wasn't until like 1975, and I went over to my neighbor's house, and I was going through their 45s. I've told this story before.
Right.
And I'm going through the 45s, and then I see the picture sleeve to I Want to Hold Your Hand. And they also have the picture sleeve to She Loves You. And I look at it. When I'm a kid, I'm going, what the heck is that? These guys look totally... I mean, I had no idea what came before that. And we're talking 1975 or so.
Wow,
I had no
so
idea.
You were really sheltered.
I was sheltered. Lawrence Welk. And then I saw these Beatles records, and I said, told my neighbor, I said, can I borrow these? Because I thought, for some reason, this is unique, Yeah. And once I put it on and played like I Want to Hold Your Hand, holy God, it's like the heavens opened up. I'd never heard anything like it. It's like, everything, the waves parted. You know what I mean?
Right. So let me ask you something as a personal question. How old are you?
I'm 56.
Okay, so you're younger than me. I have a sister 9 years older than me, so I'm 59. So as a kid in the 60s, I grew up with my sister having the Monkees records and the Beatles records, and I have a brother who's 5.5 years older than me. So by the time 1970 rolls around, he's buying Chicago records, and but as a kid in like 68, when I was 5-6 years old, 69. I still have my sister's polka dot record 45 case with all her old 45s in it. It was the Beatles. I mean, I got the Beatles. I think it's I Want to Hold Your Hand or She Loves You on Swan Records.
Yeah, the one was on Swan.
Yeah, we have that 45. So I was playing those records of my sister's records on the little Univox record player in the hallway, sitting next to the outlet, So I had the benefit of having older siblings who were into, pop music at the time. So that's kind of where. But my mom had Herb Alpert Whipped Cream and Other Delights, which every household had. I believe it was issued, for free.
So, every time you go to like the Goodwill or whatever, you can buy it multiple copies. I've got a stereo copy and a mono copy in shrink. Just, there's a bazillion of them.
Because you have to, right? I mean, I was in the 90s, I was in a band with the singer's parents owned an auction business. And he said because his job was to go and pick up the stuff from the house to put in the auction. They would buy collections. And he said every record collection, yep, there it is, Whipped Cream. He made an entire wall of Whipped Cream records. He's like, he made the Whipped Cream wall. So we had like 30 of them on a wall.
Yeah.
So because it was like the biggest record of its time. So that record I used to play because I loved his version of A Taste of Honey. Da-dun, da-dun, and I used to play that all the time. That was part of my sister's records and my mom's records, So
became part of your DNA after a while.
She had the Engelbert Humperdinck stuff too, but I didn't care about that. I liked Whipped Cream because the girl on the cover, was like, there's your first crush, 6 years old.
I get it.
But yeah, I got into that record a lot, and I played, brass instruments when I was a kid in band, and there was a piano in the house. So it was a musical house. My brother and sister played piano. So I picked up a lot of music from them, from their records and from them playing. So, but the Herb Alpert one is what makes me always remember, early 60s lounge culture. So you think about tiki bars and all that stuff and all of that music that you heard it on the television, whether it was Esquivel or Mancini, you heard all that stuff on the TV. So it became part of the DNA of of my musical kind of heritage. So it was always there. And when I moved to LA in 1995, my friend told me, you got to see this band, the Blue Hawaiians. They play right up the street.
I was going to bring up the Blue
Lava
Hawaiians.
Yeah.
Yeah, two records. Well, Live at the Lava Lounge, Sway.
Sway is
Well, I've got all the records. I think the Blue Hawaiians, absolutely brilliant. Savage
brilliant,
Night,
brilliant.
Lava Lounge 2.
Yep, I
Yeah,
used to
I've
see
got
them
all
there.
that stuff.
My friend told me about him, and I hadn't gone to see him yet. And I was on a trip back to New York with Fuzzbubble, and I was in a record store in Long Island called Record Stop. That was my singer's favorite store. I used to go to it all the time too.
Mm-hmm.
And they were playing Martini 5-0 on there,
Mhm.
you know, the slow version of Hawaii. I was like, who is this? And they're like, it's, you know, they showed me the CD, and I was like, oh, that's the band that plays up the street from me. I need to go see them. So I bought the record, and I immediately fell in love. It's like still it's my favorite surf record. And
Great
years
record.
later, I got Gary, the steel player, to play on the Fuzzbubble record, and he eventually joined, and he's in Tikiyaki Orchestra now for
Oh
a
my
year.
God.
Yeah, he played on the first record.
Yeah.
You know, after
He's brilliant.
he's
Brilliant.
he's incredible.
Yeah.
He lives 5 minutes from me. But when I was doing the Fuzzbubble record, I told Mike Klink, I said, the song Boomerang, I said, I have this guy who's plays this in this band called the Blue Hawaiians, steel guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get him on this song. I think there's a spot for him. And he goes, okay, I'll find him. And he, sure enough, you know, weeks later, showed up in the studio. And so I went to see the Blue Hawaiians after the record, whatever was ever done. And I put it out myself. It's a little different story. And I gave him a copy, and he said, oh, thanks. You know, I wonder what happened to this. So years later, when I was making the Tikiyaki stuff, I said, I have this thing I want you to play on. He goes, send it to me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, oh, yeah, I'll play on this. And I put the record out, and then I formed the band, you know. And that's 2008, 2007 I did it. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
he's, you know, he's in the band still, you know.
Well, the last album that the Blue Hawaiians did, that was 2005.
Yeah,
I'm assuming. I mean, didn't they like reform and play like a couple of gigs? Not well. My concept of time, Jim's way off. So I might say it wasn't that long ago, but it could have been 10 years ago. You know,
we played with them last year.
Okay.
At Tiki Oasis last year, we played and they headlined. And we had a different guy playing steel at that time because Gary would come and go. He's like, it's too much work for me. Music's too complicated and it's a lot of work and we don't play enough. I'm like, okay, but I got another guy to play steel, and he, you know, everyone that plays in the band all worships Gary. So they're just like, oh, I got to learn those parts, man. So, but I eventually asked Gary to come back and play, and he does. You know, he's always in need of a gig, and he likes the music. So we got him playing again. He just doesn't like to travel. You know, he doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't want to go on planes and go long distance.
Yeah, I get it.
You know, he's 71 years old. So I understand. I hate freaking driving to San Diego now to do a gig. It's like by the time you get there, you're exhausted and in pain. So it's just part of getting old, but I still keep doing it. But so yeah, they reunite, but I think he's got to the point where it's like it's not the band it was back in the 90s, because the drummer's different. They get a revolving door of people, and he's like, yeah, we don't rehearse enough. And he gets frustrated with it because they were such a good band.
Well, was Mark the guitar player?
Mark Fontana is the bass player, kind of leader of the band. And he's a singer.
Who was the guitar player?
Mark Sproul.
Mark Sproul.
Sproul, yeah.
Brilliant. That guy, brilliant.
Great guitar player.
Great guitar player.
That band was the best at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt. So, yeah, I'm a big fan still.
But Sway's a great record. Savage Night's a great record.
Yeah, I like it without vocals, personally. Sway is the perfect, 2 songs of vocals, perfect. Because they're instrumental. It's funny because he explained to me, Gary, that they were trying to go into the big record label, and they had one album to fulfill on that label they were on.
Yeah.
Pascal Records, and they said, well, we'll just do this instrumental record and do a bunch of covers, and that's what Sway became. And I'm like, Gary, that's your best record. He's like, I know. I said,
yeah, but I still like Savage Night, even though there's vocals on it.
Yep, there's
I
a
think
lot of great.
Mark Fontana as a vocalist is great.
He's a great singer. I
Holy
agree.
crap. I love
Really
it.
good singer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Who knew we'd be talking Blue Hawaiians? But I absolutely love it. And a lot
Well,
of
it's
those
guitar,
CDs to
right?
find those, well, you can get Savage Night pretty cheap, but Live at the Lava Lounge 2 is not a cheap CD.
Yeah.
You can't get that, and Sway's not cheap.
Yeah. Surprisingly, I have a copy, but I should probably take good care of it because, yeah, they're kind of hard to find now, huh?
I mean, I had Live at the Lava Lounge. That was the one I had.
That
And
was the first.
then I got on a whole Blue Hawaiians kick and I bought the rest of them. My buddy, a friend of mine, was totally into them into the 90s. He
Yeah.
was a guitar player and he's the one who turned me on to them. He thought they were absolutely brilliant. Of course, he and I were big surf music fans anyway. And the
Right.
fact that, this band was out basically doing surf music in the 90s, of course, there were other bands doing it,
Yeah.
but
There's,
man, I don't think there were anybody as good as the Blue Hawaiians, to be quite
I
honest.
agree. There's still that record to me. I remember there were points in my life where I listened to it like 5 times a day. I just kept letting it go because,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just you put it on and you're in a place,
Mhm.
just beautiful, beautiful. The covers are great. The originals are great.
Mhm.
And it sounds sonically beautiful.
Yeah, the recording from Live at the Lava Lounge and Lava Lounge 2 sound great.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know who they
It
did.
sounds like you're right there with them in the room.
And it's a very small room. I've seen them there, and whereas you can't move, it was a very small place, a tight stage. They always sounded good, and the people they played every Sunday for years. You just go there. I remember seeing celebrities there. They were a thing,
Mhm.
So, yeah,
It's
great
one of
band.
those things, and the Lava Lounge isn't there anymore, is it?
No, it's something else. I wish they would have kept it as
I
the
mean,
Lava.
it's not even Tiki, is
No,
it? I mean,
it's
that's
something
gone.
they changed the name of it. I forget what theme they went with. But they were ahead of the curve, so far ahead of the curve, because now there's an amazing tiki bar in every major city.
Mhm.
You know,
I remember going to the Fillmore, not the Fillmore, but the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco. We stayed there
oh,
for a week.
Tonga Room.
Yeah,
Oh
the
my God,
Tonga Room. We'd go there every day and get a drink.
amazing.
The Tonga Room was in I haven't been there. It was the last time I was there was like in the 90s. I'm assuming
Still there.
it's still there, but boy, was it beautiful.
Beautiful.
It's
Absolutely.
beautiful.
That's the great thing about tiki, man. The environment that you create in a tiki bar is, that's why people like it so much. It's like Disneyland.
Mhm.
It's full escape. You know,
Mhm.
so yeah.
I know this isn't like talking guitars yet, but I know you've played like, you've had Fuzzbubble, you've had Hitman, you've played like in different type of genres. I just
Yeah.
think it's fascinating that I don't even know really how to approach you, Jim, because you're just so eclectic and so vast in your musical.
I like a lot of
I mean, you
stuff.
could go play metal in one band and then next weekend you're playing tiki or you're
Yeah.
playing lounge. I
People don't see the connection. It's funny. My keyboard player from Tikiyaki's like, I don't know how you went from playing metal to this. And I said, my bass player is a huge metalhead. And I go, they're not as different as you think. I said, you could hear the influence here and there in the melodies. And
Mhm.
my bass player's like, yeah, I hear it. Because at the end of the day, I always say this. It's at the end of the day, it's all chords and notes, right? It just
Right.
depends on how you dress it up. So surf music and metal to me are complete. They're almost the same thing with different tones. I mean, if you listen to Miserlou by Dick Dale,
Mhm.
sorry, that's fucking metal. Just put a freaking heavy guitar on it. Just turn that reverb into gain, play
Mhm.
it through a rectified amp, and it's heavy. The modes are very similar to metal.
People don't bring that up. They always say, Black Sabbath invented it or whatever, Blue Cheer. But think about it. Freaking Dick Dale. That's where it started.
Or
And no one
Pipeline.
ever mentions that.
Think about the riff to Pipeline. Bum, 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 bum.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a metal riff. So
Mm-hmm.
much of it can be. It's because they use similar, a lot of minor chords. You know, you go in minor to, if you're playing an E minor, you go into B7. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of it's very similar to metal. It's and melodically, and then when you use those Middle Eastern modes, I mean that's
Mm-hmm.
basically what you hear Ingve do, right? Just really fast with distortion. It's
Yeah.
not that different. I'll maintain that so much of it is Iron Maiden-y.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not the exact same, but so much of the same melodic structures they're so similar.
But think about when Miserlou came out, how heavy that would have been. There was nothing like that at
No, it
that
was
time,
dual
that
showman
heavy.
with 15s, on all the way up. I mean, they made the dual showman amps
For
for Dick
him.
Dale so he could play louder when they played at the Rendezvous Ballroom because it was a place that fit 2,000 people and the
Mm-hmm.
little fenders weren't cutting it. So I said, I need bigger amps. I mean, think about that. When you stand in front of a dual showman on
Mm-hmm.
two, it's fucking loud.
Mm-hmm.
When you turn that thing to 11 or 10 or whatever, it's loud. It's
With
heavy
those 15s, I
with those
mean, what a great
15s
sounding amp.
and moving that amount of air
Mm-hmm.
with 15-inch speakers and a Strat. I mean, that's heavy.
We
It's heavy
saw,
before heavy.
what was it, 96, 95? We saw Dick Dale play at the Newport in Columbus, Ohio. And he had his dual showmans and he had his reverb tanks
Yep.
suspended from the ceiling or wherever he suspended them from.
So they wouldn't vibrate.
Right. But it was just crazy. And he was loud,
Loud as loud
loud.
as loud as could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
No,
was incredible. If
he
that's
wasn't
not
messing
metal,
around.
I don't know what is.
I'm telling you, surf is the precursor to metal.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much similarity. So again, when I started Tikiyaki, I was into the Blue Hawaiians, who were a surf band, but I
Mm-hmm.
said, I like that they're making surf exotic. I want to make it more exotic. I want to
Mm-hmm.
add vibraphone. I want to add, the jungle percussion. And then
Mm-hmm.
I started listening to the Martin Denny and Arthur Lyman records. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's sort of that lounge music for when I'm a kid, real schmaltzy and kind of
Mm-hmm.
cheesy. But if I add the guitar to it, and then I like the Blue Hawaiians. He had steel guitar, so I had steel. I didn't know I was doing any of this wrong because exotica music is basically a piano, vibraphone, percussion, not even a drum kit, and bass.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, Martin Denny and Arthur Lyman, that's what their combos consisted of. And I just added all. I said I want to do like the first record. I want to do like a Phil Spector where you have a wall of percussion, not just one, like five
Mm-hmm.
different parts and organ and the cheesy roller rink organ, the Lowry organ, sound and all of that stuff. And I just kind of took the Esquivel and the Martin Denny and the surf music and Hawaiian music and just and it wasn't like I was listening to I listened to enough to hear what it was doing in
Mm-hmm.
terms of instrumentation, but I just wrote the songs and used that instrumentation, and that's what it became. Like real exotica music is not very song driven; it's more soundscapey. There's a
Mm-hmm.
song, but it's very, very extrapolated on, especially Martin Denny because he was a piano player. So I just took my Beatles mentality of writing, okay, a catchy melody and then just dressing it up with all those ornate sounds, using Latin percussion and drums kind of ping ponging between them, in a very non-linear way. Like the
Right.
songs are very arranged. Like with rock, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, everybody plays on the 1, 2, 3, and 4. With what I do, I take the Latin thing where you're going ping ponging rhythms and polyrhythms and arranging it like an orchestra. Like, okay, the organ part just comes in there and there, and then the piano part's playing this, and the bass is not playing the same as the kick drum. He's playing, and that's kind of what I. So it's sort of like a puzzle, like Tetris.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I don't know. I don't know where. I guess because I played in band as a kid, I also learned how
Yeah.
band arrange. It's just I don't know. So yeah, I like metal, but I grew up with all of that playing in the band and listening to Herb Albert and surf music. And, my sister had the Wipeout 45 and the Beatles, and everything gets rolled in, I can't explain it other than that. It's just every piece of thing I know about music, kind of, I roll it into that music. So
I just absolutely,
it's
I don't
bizarre.
even know what to say. No, it's really incredible because I don't know anybody else that would take surf and lounge and Hawaiian, and I don't know. Usually it's either one or the other. But it totally makes sense though, Jim, that you can combine all of them. They're all very similar to some degree.
Well, what's fun about it, and we were talking about it at the gig on Friday. I think Gary was saying to me, he's like, I like playing in the orchestra because there's so many different instruments playing the melody. Sometimes the organ will take the melody and everybody else will kind of support the melody. And then sometimes the piano and guitar will play the melody simultaneously, or the guitar and the vibraphone. So you're always getting a different sonic palette playing the melody. And it's just basic. Like you could do one verse where it's like, I'm playing the melody on guitar, and then the second verse, the vibraphone's joining me, and then maybe countering with a harmony, or I'm playing a melody and then the vibraphone's doing an answer melody, and that's the way I think, like puzzle pieces. It's fun to do. It's like playing traditional surf is more like it's all reliant on the guitar doing the melody and the drums and bass doing the rhythmic propulsion, and that's what there's so many traditional surf bands that do that. I just want to take the surf guitar and make it part of the orchestral thing. So I don't know. It's just it is what it is.
But you're playing guitar in the band though, correct?
I play guitar. I play organ. I'm a second keyboard player, but a lot of times I'm playing the main organ melody. And I do bongos. I play bongos and some percussion and guiro and,
whatever it needs. You're there.
Whatever it needs. Yeah. So like it's a 7-piece band, but like my keyboard player plays guitar too, and he'll pick up a shaker. My percussion player plays everything on percussion. Then we have vibraphone, steel guitar, bass, and drums. So there's two like kind of multi-instrumentalists playing guitar and keyboards and whatever. And I'll do little bongo solos. So it's more like a 9-10 piece band, but 7 people covering it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So there was a video I saw on YouTube. You might have posted it on Facebook, but it looked like you were playing some surf guitar riffs, but it looked like you were playing like a Schecter or something.
That's what I have.
Okay.
I play a Schecter Ultra 3, which I went to a friend's house, and he was friends with the Schecter people, and they just give him guitars. And he goes, you got to try this. He plugged it into it was like a PV Classic, kind of like when
Classic 30 or something?
Knocking off the fenders,
Yeah, the Classic 30s.
Tweed. And he goes, you got to play this thing. And I played it, and here's the thing. Fenders have a real steep neck radius. They have a very round, not a very flat neck.
Well, yeah, it depends on what you buy, though. You know what I mean.
The old Jazzmasters, they have a 7 or an 8 neck radius. And like, I'm used to playing Gibsons, which are like 12, 11, 12, 13 neck radius. And I have a problem with my first finger. You can see it doesn't bend.
Well, that is a problem.
I injured it when I was a kid. So I can bend it with my thumb, but these 2 knuckles don't work. Basically, the tendon got severed. I got a piece of glass in there, severed the tendon. And I was 4, so they didn't have microsurgery. So they took the 2 ends of the tendon and tied them in a knot, sewed my hand up and said, you're not going to have much use out of your finger. So you can see that bend in my finger when I try to flat fret, bar. On the Fenders, I can't push down the high E string enough. So because the neck radius, the high E is higher off the neck than a standard, like a Gibson. So the Ultra 3 has a 14 neck radius, which is super flat. So it's a lot easier for me to play.
Yeah,
Fenders are struggle for me to play because of that. So that's why I play the Ultra 3 because neck radius. So that's what I'm using, and it's a good guitar. I really like it. Got a Bigsby, 3 coil switch pickups. So I got a lot of. It's sort of like a Swiss Army knife. It does a little bit of everything. So that's what I'm using. I added Jazzmaster for like a year, and I'm like, I can't play this thing.
I love the Jazzmaster.
I love them too. I love the way they sound.
When you have the Jazzmaster on both pickups, that's the sound of surf.
That's the sound of surf.
And I don't care. People can say how great a Strat sounds and a Telecaster sounds, but I'm telling you, those Jazzmaster pickups are killer.
Yep.
I love the sound of the Jazzmaster.
I was, if I could get a deal with Schecter, I would ask them to make me an Ultra 3 with Jazzmaster pickups in it. I sometimes I think about taking.
The thing is, can't you get a Fender? I mean, Fender's making all kinds of crap now, different radiuses and everything. Couldn't you just get a Jazzmaster? And the other thing is, though, Jim, the tremolo, the vibrato system on the Jazzmaster is absolutely the best vibrato system. I mean, people
for Fender, you mean?
Huh?
On the Fenders, you mean?
If you get let's say you buy a new one,
right?
A new vintage reissue. Right. You don't want the Japanese vibrato system on the Jazzmaster. You want the made in USA one.
Right.
Make sure you have a good spring in it. But those always go back in tune. If they're always set up right, they never go out of tune.
Yeah.
It was that the Jazzmaster was, people won't understand, but the Jazzmaster was the perfect guitar. I swear to God, Leo Fender knew what he was doing when he did that.
I love them. Like I said, if I could get one with a flat neck radius, and I'm sure I could, I just haven't. I probably should look into it. I guess I'm so used to my Schecter now, but
but that's fine. But man, those Jazzmaster
would like more of that Jazzmaster sound, though.
My God, I love it.
Yep.
I don't have a Jazzmaster right now, but I had a Jaguar. Well, I've had so many different things over the course of my life that I still wish I had. And everybody who plays guitar can say the same thing. But I've had like 65 Jaguars. Back in the day, when I was a kid, I had a 66 Rickenbacker 360 that someone put humbuckers in. But I was Rickenbacker crazy. There's one thing I love Rickenbackers. I freaking love Rickenbackers. But this was a 65 360, the new shape, blah, blah, blah. Yep. Actually, it was a 365 because it still had the tremolo, vibrato. It didn't have the arm on it, but someone had put humbuckers in it, which ruined it. But, I was just learning how to play. But I traded that guitar in and I got a 65 Jaguar. Did I trade it for that? I don't know, but I remember buying the Jaguar. The Jaguar was a 65. It was $150. Because no one back in the 80s, well, this was probably the late 70s, no one wanted them. It sat back in the K.
Right. It was all about a Strat or a Les Paul back then.
And even then, those were cheap back then.
Yeah.
The guitar place in Marion, Ohio, when I was a kid, when I first went in, had 5 pre-CBS Strats sitting on the shelf. And of course, that was 78, 77.
Yeah.
But, that didn't last very long. Once George Gruen got a hold of everything and jacked the prices up on everything, that ended. But back then, you could find stuff. And, they had that Jaguar, and I'm going, and they said, "Oh, you want that? Really?" I said, "Jesus, that's a great guitar." See, I understood even then how cool it was.
Lucky you.
But no one else wanted them.
Yeah.
But I've had like 3 Jaguars. I had like a reissue Jaguar. I mean, I love the Jaguar. Don't get me wrong.
Jaguars are cool too. They have the Strat pickups in them, kind of, right?
Kinda.
They're the thin single coils.
Right.
Yeah, they're great too, man. Listen, they're both great. Like I said, if they didn't have such a curved neck, I would own one.
I know. Those older ones are really curved. The newer ones, like the ones that are coming out of Mexico, which, people could complain about. I'll tell you, the ones coming out of Mexico, They've been making great stuff for years, and they're not quite as, you know.
Yeah, they maybe have a little more or less of a neck rate. Well, here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even a Squire, Fender's cheapest crap is still great. A Squire, I got two Squire tellies. I just bought one recently with a Laurel Rosewood, Laurel fretboard. For $220, you get a guitar that sounds and plays amazing. I mean, they're super light, but whatever. Maybe okay, I got to replace the tuners, maybe, but
might have to replace the pickups. I don't know what's going on with the pickups. It's like the Japanese Fenders. Do you ever have any Japanese Fenders?
I had a Japanese Fender Jazzmaster. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what's underneath those? It's just it's basically a Strat pickup inside of a.
Oh, is it?
Oh my God. I yanked those out and put some Seymour Duncan antiquities in there.
Oh, okay.
And yanked the tremolo system out and put American one in it. I mean, the Japanese ones, beautiful quality. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
If you want anything, you want the Japanese Fenders because they're absolutely stunning.
Right.
But their electronics and their pickups are. You yank those out and get some Duncans and put those in.
Yeah.
Or hell.
Or the AVRI ones, right?
Or the vintage Fender ones are fine. That's what I had.
That's what I put in the Jazzmaster. I got two AVRI pickups.
They're just as good as the Duncans, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
but
my Ultra 3 has Duncans in it. They're like the what do they call those? They're like the Gretsch pickups.
Oh, the Filtertrons.
They're like Filtertrons. Yeah, Duncan licensed for Schecter.
So are you using flat wounds or using round wounds on it?
I'm using round wounds. I haven't done the flat wound thing.
I'll tell you, man, you have a Jazzmaster with the proper pickups with flat wounds. You are
for surf, yeah.
Oh my God. I'm just saying.
It's weird. I know a lot flat ones are big on the bass, but yeah, the surf guys use them on guitar too.
That's what I use. I was all flat wound.
I didn't grow up playing surf, so just going to an 11 gauge string was hard enough for me to deal with,
But if you have it on, if you have like 11s on the Jaguar, since it's a short scale length, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I use on the Ultra 3 11s.
Yeah, that's what I put on my Jazzmaster.
Yeah.
That tremolo likes a heavy string.
Yeah.
Because, it was designed in the 50s.
Right. And you need to play clean, you got to have a heavier gauge. It's like playing an acoustic guitar. You can't have thin strings on an acoustic guitar. You won't get any tone. Right. Same thing with surf. You got to have the fatter. I know guys that play with like 13s.
I think that's what Pete Townsend used to use, or 13.
How do you bend?
I don't think he cared.
Probably not.
I can't imagine what 13s would feel like. The only highest I've ever went were, I think I might have went 12s, and I put a set of pyramids on the Jazzmaster. Yeah. Did you ever use a set of pyramids before? Oh my God, those are the ultimate.
The flat wound.
They're expensive, but they're all nickel.
Right.
And they sound
like $20 a set or something.
Oh, they're more than that. Well, they're probably $30 for guitar strings, but if you put them on bass, they're like 75, 80. Made in Germany. It's what the Beatles used.
Really?
They had pyramids, yeah. That's what everybody was using back then. All the Beatles stuff, all that shit's all flat wound. You listen to all the guitar parts like on Revolver and Rubber Soul, those are all flat wound.
Those are flat wounds? I did not know that.
Listen to Nowhere Man. The guitar, the solo, the real compressed part,
right? Yeah,
Strat, that's definitely flat wounds. And I'll tell you, people don't talk about it, but if you put a set of flat wounds on a Strat, it just absolutely rings.
Yeah,
Strats really sound good with flat wounds. Oh yeah, all the Beatles stuff, that was all flat wound. Now, when you get up to Abbey Road, they're using round wounds, I think.
Wonder
what Paul was, and Paul's always using flat wounds or
right
tape.
I wonder what made them change.
Well, didn't I think Ernie Ball started making round wound strings like in the late 60s, I think. Slinkies and stuff came on the market.
That's always been my brand.
Mm-hmm.
I've
That
always
was like
been
a late
that.
60s thing.
Wow, yeah, that's what I
And I
started buying when I started playing
and I
Slinkies.
think a lot of that had to do with Jimi Hendrix. I can't prove it, but you know Jimmy wasn't using flatwounds.
Yeah,
So,
wow, that's interesting.
mhm.
I did not know that. So all those country guys were using flatwounds back in
Oh
the.
yeah, you'd have to get that sound.
Yeah,
There,
that's
I
interesting.
mean, it's flatwounds just sound great. But
I should.
pyramids are very lively because they're all nickel.
Right.
They, I mean, if you're doing, and they last forever. Once you buy a set, yeah, you might be spending a lot of money, but hell, they last forever.
They do,
And
huh? Because yeah,
mhm,
because I break strings. I beat on it pretty hard sometimes. You know. Uh,
mhm.
well, I should
I don't
try a
know.
set.
You
Pyramid like
should try it. If
11s.
you're doing some surf, I'd say give it a shot.
Yeah,
The
I
other
think I tried one set of flats. Trying to think of what I got. Probably Ernie Ball.
Diodarios, they those aren't too expensive and they're pretty good.
Yeah. But pyramid, I want to try the pyramids now, but they're 30 something bucks a set.
Well, they're probably 30 bucks, probably 35 maybe.
Wow.
But
That's the
like I
cost.
said, they're all nickel.
Right.
And you got to have that wound G too.
Wound G, yeah.
Yeah, that's key.
Yep.
But man, I'll tell you, talk about surf tone. There you go.
Yeah. Do you watch that guy, the YouTube channel guy does all the he mostly concentrates on surf. He does pedals and I forget what his channel is called, but he's always trying to find the best new reverb in a box and all that.
Oh, like yeah. I don't know, but this Vox that I have back here, which is a 1966 Viscount's got reverb from hell on it. You could play surf on that thing all day.
I only used the Vox once when we were recording the Fuzzbubble record.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I want to get an AC30.
I used to
And
have an AC30. I had a 19, what year was it? Whatever the 25th anniversary was. Because the
oh, wow.
guitar store we worked for, I wanted a Vox, and my buddy Keith, we both played in a band and we wanted to get AC30. So, and I forget who they were distributed through. It was before Korg Bottom. And it was
Okay,
still,
yeah.
it wasn't Jennings, but it was still Vox, I guess.
Right.
And they were starting to introduce them into the country again because no one in 1985 cared about Vox at all. Nobody wanted them. You could buy, these
Well, the
old
new
Thomas
wave
organ
band.
ones cheap,
I think the new wave bands wanted them.
but I had the 25th anniversary AC30. If you ever looked at Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers record, um, uh, Pack Up the Plantation, you know
Mm-hmm.
that record?
Mm-mm.
And you look at the record, it's the live album from 85.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You open it up and you see Tom Petty's Vox. He's
Yep.
got one of those 25th anniversary ones because it's got like a little plaque on the front.
Oh,
But he had those. But they were just starting to reintroduce them, and we became a Vox dealer in 1985.
oh, wow.
But we only were, bought those two. And I sold that amp. I should never have sold it. It had Fane speakers in it, and it was loud.
That's the thing. That's the thing I was going to get to when I started playing it at the studio. I was like, man, you got to turn this thing deafening loud just to get any sort of breakup at all.
Yeah, because it's a Class B.
It was so loud. I'm like, I don't know, man. I've had the same amp since 1982, a 77 Marshall JMP 50 watt,
Mm-hmm.
and I could get that thing clean with just the right amount of breakup for what I need. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
a suit because they're not super overdriven amps.
Mm-hmm.
That's my amp, the Marshall JMP 50 watt, because they're not. Because once the JCM 800s came out, I hated them. They were just so fizzly, so
Yeah.
so sizzly and distorted. Like, the JMP is what, Angus was using, and
He
Michael
got that nice woody kind of sound.
just
You know
kind
what
of
I mean?
clangy, not too, you get a nice, if you turn the gain all the way up, you get a nice distortion, but it's not fuzzy. It's just,
It's natural.
it's AC/DC Highway to Hell. If you plug in and play Highway to Hell on it, and it sounds like the record, then that's the starting
Yeah,
point.
because AC/DC, they're not really distorted. It's just overdriven a bit.
It's loud.
It's
Sounds
loud,
loud.
but it's not,
No. Michael Schenker, too. Michael Schenker used him in UFO. He had a wall of them, of JMP amps. Alex Lifeson, too. He went from the Plexi to the JMPs, and then he went to every other amp on the planet. But, around the time of, 2112 and All the World's a Stage, he had the Plexis, but I think he might have had a JMPs. He still might have been Plexi then.
So
But,
Alex still sounded like Alex then.
Yep. Yeah. He's changed so
I mean,
much.
I'm not trying to. I love Alex Lifeson, but I'll tell you the guitar tone he had on Permanent Waves though must be my favorite.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was
Hemispheres.
Hemispheres.
Mm-hmm.
I love everything guitar wise up to Moving Pictures, and then as one thing, like the first album. I love the sound of the first album. There's so much piss and vinegar in his sound and his playing.
It sounds great.
I mean, a 335 through a Plexi, just freaking cranked up. I mean, it was so.
That was probably his best tone he ever had.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
I know, on that first record. Because then, like, Fly By Night, he did like a cleaner sound, and Caress the Steel, he did a cleaner sound. Then he kind of cranked it up a little for 2112, and then All the World's a Stage, he used the Les Paul, and it was like way too distorted. But I love that record. That's still one of my favorites of theirs. And then Farewell to Kings, he went cleaner, and he had the HH Electronics amp that he used, which was a solid state. And then Hemispheres, he went to the high watts, and that's a whole different kind of weird sound.
But I'm still on board though. I'm still on board with that.
Oh, totally. I love the sound of those high watts. And he was using the 355. With him, it was all about what he did with chorus and flangers. But throughout, the 335 and the 355 were always his best sounding ones.
Yeah,
the Les Paul, when he went to Les Paul for All the World's a Stage, it was super distorted, and then he went back to them later, and his sound got really saturated, and it didn't have any more of that chimey kind of loud, just an amp cranked up type of sound. So, but that's the sound I like. His like that up to Moving Pictures those are my sounds.
Yeah, Moving Pictures is okay too.
Yeah, he went to a Strat, a little more processed, but Permanent Waves, that's a good sounding record for guitar, man.
I love that record. That's my favorite. That's my favorite Rush album.
Is it?
Yes.
Depends on the day of the week for me. It changes. Some days it's Caress of Steel.
Well,
oddly enough,
that's good too.
Favorite guitar solos on that record, though, No One at the Bridge. It's my favorite Alex Lifeson. One of my favorite guitar solos of all time.
Really?
Because it's melodic. It's nothing flashy, but the tone on it is insane. It's just super, like, I don't know what probably triple tracked. I love the sound of that.
I would say my favorite solo would have to be Hendrix on Along the Watchtower. I would have to say.
Oh, okay. I have like 5 favorite guitar solos, and they're all over the map. 25 or 6 to 4 is definitely one. That No One at the Bridge, that one. The solo on Love to Love on UFO Lights Out, the first one. Slow one. And the solo on Try Me, also UFO. I like the real melodic stuff. And then the solo on Love Somebody by Rick Springfield, which I believe is Tim Pierce.
That would be Tim Pierce.
that is a perfect guitar solo.
Tim Pierce is great. You ever watch his YouTube videos? He's always putting
Watch
stuff
a couple of them. Yeah, I've watched a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that guy's fantastic.
He's fantastic.
So that solo though, it's beautiful.
Hell, I didn't know we'd even mention Rick Springfield tonight because I love all that Rick Springfield stuff.
It's great. It's great.
Power pop, you know.
He wrote, hey man, he wasn't just a pretty face. He wrote good songs.
Mm-hmm.
Had a good voice. I like Rick Springfield. No shame in that. There's no guilt.
No, but there was shame back in the 80s.
Yeah. I don't know. I heard that solo and I was like, man, that it doesn't get any better. Even back then. I was like, God damn, that guitar solo is amazing. I don't know who's doing it, but
I think Tim was all over that. I think all the way up until
probably.
What was the one album came out in 86? Shit. The one that's got Holiday and Honeymoon in Beirut. Oh shit, what's the name of that record?
I don't know.
Yellow album cover.
Career, really, but I didn't really follow his career. I just remember hearing, amongst the other ones, but that particular song, that solo, because it's like its own little part of the song that's not like the rest of the song.
Mm-hmm.
It was written specifically for that guitar solo to play over
those
chords, because the rest of the song it never does it. So I'm like, they dropped that cool little part of that song in there with that perfect solo. He probably said, hey, how about we do this? Probably gave him the chords and I wrote this solo over it already. Done, Super cool. But yeah, that's those are my 5 that I always go back to as my favorite guitar solos.
And I do have to say, though, I got to give Jimmy Page some props because I do like the solo in Stairway to Heaven, even though that song's played to death. But the solo in it's brilliant.
It's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect.
I just have to mention that because it is great.
That song, I know it bothers so many people. Like, oh, Stairway to Heaven. It's like, yeah, but at this point, you just got to go, man. He fucking did that, right?
Wow.
Just give it up to him. Who cares if it's been overplayed? Hotel California, same thing.
It's brilliant, though, the guitar parts, the way they worked them out. It's brilliant.
I mean, it's amazing. You
don't ever have to want to hear it again, but you can appreciate what they did. I mean, of course, the Eagles were so worked out. I mean, they just totally,
Felder was amazing, and Joe Walsh. I don't mind hearing it again. It's not. There are certain records I don't need to hear again.
Mm-hmm.
Like anything off of Appetite for Destruction, I don't need to hear ever again.
I don't care if I ever hear that anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not a big. There was a show on the Contrarians where we were talking Guns N' Roses, and I just absolutely can't stand Guns N' Roses. I just think it's just absolutely. I mean, everybody's different, but Axl Rose, I don't get it. I wish someone could explain it to me because I don't understand.
It's Ethel Merman.
I can appreciate Slash. I think the band's fine.
Yeah, Slash is a great guitar player.
But Axl Rose, I don't get it. I just don't understand.
High voices were a thing then. And he just had a very weird, it was unique. I mean, he's the first guy here to do that really low thing he did too.
Mm-hmm.
So he did that really low thing and then the high screechy thing. I mean, I remember when it came out, I was like, oh, look at these guys trying to be Aerosmith, whatever. And then I just gave it up to it for a while. I listened to that record a lot because it sounded good. And I'll tell you something very interesting, and you won't be able to unhear this now. When I was doing the Fuzzbubble record with Mike Klink, he told us that whole story about Guns N' Roses. Yep, that record. I said, give us some Guns N' Roses stories. And we told, because he produced that record. Mm-hmm. And he said, they did that record. Apparently they did that record twice before he did it. And them and the label both hated it.
Mm-hmm.
And he met with them because he was Ron Neverson's guy. And Axl and Slash met with him, and they brought UFO Strangers in the Night. They said, we want our record to sound like this. Now, when you go back and listen to that record, listen to the detuned snare drum, the reverb, and the guitar sound. And now you won't be able to unhear how much that sounds like UFO Strangers in the Night.
Oh, now I'm going to have to listen to it.
I swear to God, you'll be like, fuck, there it is. When I hear it, I go, when he told me that, I was like, and I listened to Appetite, I'm like, it's like a little more hi-fi version of Strangers in the Night. The snare drum sound is the same. The guitar sound, the way he has the guitars EQ'd with that kind of high buzzy, high end, and the reverbs they used, it sounds like Strangers. It really does. And
I never would have ever thought that.
Yeah, now when you go back and hear it, you'll be like, it'll fuck you up because it's totally true. I'm not kidding.
I won't be able to unhear it.
You won't, because every time I hear it, I'm like,
damn it.
There it is, man.
Crap.
They had good taste. They picked the freaking greatest UFO record and said, hey, make us sound like this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's a kind of funny story, but like I tell people that, I'm like, go ahead, go listen to that record now that I've told you that. And sure, you could hear it. I could hear it like crazy. As an person who engineers,
right.
I'm like, that snare drum sound freaking detuned like that with that reverb they put on it. I'm like, yep, that's UFO. And that's what they wanted. So interesting. And the guitar sound too. Very similar.
So I'm just curious. I know you played and wrote all this. Why didn't you engineer this?
I engineered the first version of that record, which got us the record deal. I didn't engineer it because we got a big record deal and we were using real guys,
Gotcha.
I was very, very hands-on on how I wanted it to sound, but when we got Mike to do the record, he goes, I'm going to produce it. I got an engineer, this guy, Ed Thacker. Works out a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, shit, because I didn't want to, first of all, I didn't want to be in Rumba with a giant, Neve console trying to, no, like, I want to be in the band,
I was just curious because, you look at some of these guys, they want to do it all. And, I don't know.
I did it all I worked at a little studio in Hollywood, and that's where I recorded all the original versions of those songs. And, we didn't make them sound that much different. We just made them sound A grade,
Well, I'll tell you, this record sounds very big. That's all.
Yeah.
Big is what I'm going to say. It sounds just huge.
Right. But, to me, I hear it and I hear, which was a curse of being, at the time it was done, to me, it's underproduced, specifically for that 90s Nirvana. Everybody was underproduced. No one was making, there is production in there, but it's not like, it's still very raw sounding. The guitars are very raw sounding. And there are production elements in there, but I listen to it. I go, we probably should have made it a little less raw, but that's what was the sound of the time. That raw kind of alt rock sound was what was really.
But there's a lot of power pop in here, though.
Well, yeah. We were all about Red Cross and Jellyfish. Cheap Trick.
It doesn't open up. I can't remember what the first song. What's the first track?
Bliss.
Now that doesn't sound power pop. As you go into the record, you guys kind of work more of the power pop element in.
Right. Well, that song was directly inspired by I'll Stick Around by the Foo Fighters, because I was really into that first Foo Fighters record.
Yeah, the first Foo Fighters record's great. Well, and the second one's great too.
The second one is the best. When that record came out, I was all about it. I still am. It's one of my, to me, I think I did a Sea of Tranquility record about 90s guitar riffs, and there was a couple of songs from that record that I just like, sorry, you can't, I don't care what you do or don't like, you can't fucking deny Everlong. You can't.
No.
You can't deny Monkey Wrench. You can't deny My Hero. Those are great. Sorry, that record, top to bottom, is amazing. And when we were shopping, talking to producers, we meant to meet with Bradley Cook, who did that record, but we didn't. But we meant to meet with him. We just never had that meeting. He was one of the guys on the list. Because that record is incredible. But that first record, the first Foo Fighters record,
Mm-hmm.
I remember hearing "I'll Stick Around" and that ticka 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 and I'm like, that really inspired Bliss. I just did it my own way. The drums are kind of surfy a little bit, and the distorted bass and all that. But the rest of the record, yeah, I mean, we were very much a power pop band, but I was definitely under the influence of the Foo Fighters and Jellyfish and Cheap Trick and Old Kiss and Red Cross and all of that stuff.
I can hear all that.
It's all in there. Red Cross is another band I loved, and Eddie, the guitar player for Red Cross, helped us produce the first Fuzzbubble record, which became the demo. We never released it. We released it afterwards, but all of those songs, he was in the studio with me, producing them with me. So, because I made friends with him when I moved to LA, which was a strange, weird coincidence that happened. So,
did you ever see Jellyfish live?
I did. I saw them twice on
Spilt Milk
tour.
I saw them on the first album and then on Spilt Milk.
I would have loved to have seen them with Jason Faulkner. I did not.
It was great.
Yeah, they were mind-blowingly good.
Mind-blowingly good. Yeah.
How does such bad timing because everyone was, freaking hanging themselves to Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and all that depresso grunge stuff, which I was not a fan of. When grunge happened, I was like, what is everybody so miserable about? I'm going to listen to this happy shit. So Jellyfish, Red Cross, the Posies,
Yeah, Posey's first record.
I went to power pop, in the 90s. Because I was like, I wasn't having Pearl Jam. I really didn't like Soundgarden. I didn't like Alice in Chains. I was like, this is too depresso for me. I'm not into it. So I went to power pop and Jellyfish and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was totally into all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, those records are masterpieces. Those two Jellyfish records.
We're doing a show on my channel called This Is Power Pop. We looked at the first Raspberries album.
Okay.
Next month, we're looking at, of course, I don't think the first Raspberries album is so much power pop as opposed to the ones that came later. I probably should have chose a different record. But I thought, think about how power pop started out. You've got, probably Badfinger's where it started, I'm going to say. But, you had Raspberries, Badfinger, Big Star. That's where it all started pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that first Raspberries album, I mean,
Go All the Way is on it.
What a great track.
Yeah. Amazing. That's probably, you're probably right. That's probably what started, even though Pete Townsend coined the term power pop in the mid 60s.
Well, the Who are power pop, definitely.
Yeah.
A lot of their, obviously.
Yeah.
Think about it. I mean, it even started back then. There's Beatles stuff that's power pop. If you want to go that far back, a lot of the British Invasion stuff, and that's where it all came from.
Right.
The Who, the Kinks, all that stuff. That's where it came from.
And the Raspberries were horribly out of step playing the music that they did. They wore those ruffly shirts. I remember my drummers from Fuzzbubble's dad was a drummer back then. Mm-hmm. And he said, he goes, the Raspberries, when they came out, people were like, what's with the hair and it's like, that's 5 years ago. What are you doing? But they didn't care. And look, they had hits. So undeniable songs.
Even though, right.
Overnight Sensation and all of it. Tonight.
You can't argue with any of that.
No,
I mean, the Eric Carmen songs, I'm going to say, are absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
What's his name?
Guitar player? Wally Bryson?
No, Wally's okay. Bass player. The guy that was in the choir, sang lead on that song in the choir. What's his name? Oh, my God.
Oh, I don't know.
Brain problem. Hold on.
Huh.
It'll come to me.
Google search.
Well, I'm getting on Discogs. Dave Smalley.
Oh, okay.
His songs I don't care so much for, but Eric Carmen and, Wally's songs are fine.
Yeah.
That's what I think brings down the first album, or Dave Smalley's songs.
Yeah.
But that's all right. They were all, everybody contributed. I get it. I mean, it's hard to go up against Wally and Eric Carmen as far as songwriters. Well, Eric Carmen, very hard because absolutely
Right.
brilliant stuff.
Right.
Whatever you're going to
Yeah.
say about him, even though when he quit and did all that sappy stuff in the 70s, even that stuff's really good. That whole side one of his first solo albums, excellent, top notch.
Yeah. Hey, he saw where the money was, right?
Well, whatever.
Once
He's
the
got to
ballads-
support himself. And the guy can write a song. I'll give him that.
You can write a ballad like
Right.
nobody's business. So yeah.
So what were we? I can't remember what we were doing. We're going to look at the Power Pop show. We're going to look at the Fountains of Wayne on one show.
Okay.
We're like doing it like once a month. Pick a song, pick an album, and throwing it out to everybody. And
Right.
a lot of it, the whole goal that I had was to throw out stuff that maybe I hadn't even heard. I mean, there's a lot
of good power pop. I got into power pop in the 90s, and a lot of people just lumped it in as alternative. So there were bands like the Gigolo Ants. Great band. I don't know if you've ever listened to them.
I haven't listened to, but I remember seeing their CDs.
Great power pop band. I mean, they have a song from their Flippin' Out record called Where I Find My Heaven. It sounds like the Byrds. Full.
And you used to be able to
vocals.
find that stuff used, but
You
I
know,
haven't seen it in years.
people throw the CDs have all gone in the garbage, so hard to find. But there was a power pop band on MTV the Greenberry Woods. They had a song. Super
Flipping Out's the one you would see all the time.
Yep, it's a great record.
1993.
Great record.
Well, if I see it, I'll pick it up.
Yeah. And then you had Super Drag, and you had Space Hog, amazing band. In the 90s was rich with great power pop. The Posies, Red Cross, tons of bands. And then there were the bands that I knew: Silverjet, Summer Camp, the LA bands, all these guys that I knew, and all the LA power pop scene, the Wonderments, on and on.
I got the Wonderments, that first Wonderments CD.
Yeah, they became Brian Wilson's band,
Yeah.
All of that stuff. It was so, when I moved to LA in 1995, the power pop scene was everywhere. There was so many great bands. And that's when I started Fuzzbubble. I did the demo at home in New York, and then I moved to LA.
Mm-hmm.
And then I told my singer, I said, "You got to come out here, man. Everybody's doing this music that we're doing, So they eventually came out, and we played. We played a bunch of shows. And then we got the record deal, and then everything went south from there. But it was a great scene, 95, 96, 97 out here for power pop.
That first, we had Prescott Niles on the show. We interviewed him. Peter Kerr and we kind of like split our show up, and I have it on my channel and he has it on his channel, but Prescott Niles from the Knack really has some great stories.
Oh, I bet.
Holy crap.
I mean, that was like the ultimate, what was that, like 80?
79 was the first Knack album.
Yeah.
Which I love that record.
Yeah.
I love But the Little Girls Understand, and Round Trip is my favorite record though.
Okay.
Great record.
Yeah.
But the stories he had, holy crap.
I can imagine.
He was at Woodstock when he was a kid. He hitchhiked, and he was trying to get there, and the guy said, "Do you need a lift?" And he said, "Yeah, I play in the band Santana. I've got to get to
He actually said that?
Yeah, and they didn't know who Santana was, and they believed him, and they gave him a ride.
That's amazing.
Oh, he's got great
smart.
stories. But
wow. Yeah, I watched the Woodstock 99 documentary. I was like, oh my God, what a train wreck indeed. Hence its name.
Did you ever see the Knack play live ever?
No.
I saw him in,
I wasn't into. Remember, this is '79. I was into Rush.
no, I saw him in '98 in
when they came
Cleveland
back.
at the Agora
Oh
with
wow.
Terry Bozzio playing drums.
Wow. Oh, because did Bruce Gary die by that time?
Or he wasn't in the band,
Okay.
but they had Terry Bozzio, and it was just fine.
Yeah. Well,
Well, you know Terry Bozzio, of course.
I mean, he's
Amazing. And I'll tell you, it was at the Agora in Cleveland. There were probably 30 people in the audience.
Oh, Jesus.
And we just stood right up front, of course. You've got Terry Bozzio playing drums.
Man, how disappointing for them was that? 30
It was
people.
great.
But for you, awesome.
It was great for who was there.
Right. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
wow.
It was great. And they were top notch.
Yeah, well, I'm sure.
I mean, Burton, as far as guitar player, holy gosh. I mean, as a band, they were good.
Right.
And even when you had Bruce Gary as a drummer, I mean, obviously a great drummer.
Yeah.
He played with all kinds of people, You
know what? I take that back. I did see the Knack. I saw them with Alice Cooper. It was Alice Cooper and the Knack at the Universal Amphitheater. Now I remembered. Oh, that's right. And that was in the 90s. Late 90s. 98 probably.
Well, it could have been Terry Bozzio playing drums. You might not have known it.
Yeah. Man, they all wear blue suits. I gotta remember that now. I forgot that I saw the Knack. Yeah, and then Doug Feiger died a few years later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what a shame.
Brilliant stuff.
Yep.
I don't know. Well, we didn't, Jim, we went an hour and we didn't talk any guitars. We've just shot the shit.
I know. That's okay.
It's fun though.
Yeah.
Well, we did talk some guitar. We did
some guitar,
But
let's talk about a Red Cross album, I don't know if you're into Red Cross or not.
What's my favorite Red Cross album? I would have to say Third Eye.
Third Eye. Okay. I like Third Eye. I like what's the one after it? Phase Shifter.
That's a good one.
And I really love Show World.
Material Issue. You like Material Issue?
I like Material Issue. Kim the Waitress. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good band.
God, there's a Pez band. Heard the Pez band?
I never listened to the Pez band. I should listen to them though. That's like the 80s.
What about Shoes? Do you like Shoes?
When the Shoes were on MTV, I was like, these guys are lame. I'd probably like them now.
Present
I think
Tense
I went
album?
back and listened to them, and I was like, some power pop is kind of boring and jangly to me. It's like, kind of liked them.
I've got the box set that came out on Esoteric, or was it Cherry Red? They're both the same.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful, nice box. So is the Iron Butterfly box is beautiful.
Huh.
And the Steppenwolf box set.
Oh, that label does all of those boxes?
Esoteric is just wonderful what they put out. They did the Chris Squire 2 CD set, I think, with.
Oh, wow.
It's got like alternate mix. I don't know if it's a Steven Wilson mix. I can't remember if it's Steven Wilson or not, but it's got the remix and then the original mix, and it sounds beautiful. All their stuff's great. Love Esoteric stuff.
I'll have to check them out.
But the Steppenwolf box set sounds wonderful.
Huh.
It's not all jacked up. It's not, they have good mastering engineers. They're not all into the whole loudness war thing. You know what I mean?
I think people are finally coming to grips that isn't a good idea. With the super loudness thing. I know the Fuzzbubble record, even though George Marino mastered it and it was great, I think it's a little bit too balls to the wall at times.
Yeah, it's a little bit, but it's not bad.
But that was the thing at that time. But, working with George Marino was a fucking amazing, sitting in a room with him telling us how he mastered Beatle records and everything else. Like,
you're sitting there going,
but I think that,
Jesus, you're right.
I said, did you master any Beatle records? He goes, yeah, every time we had to do a new pressing, it had to be remastered because we were cutting a lathe, cutting wax. It's like, wow. He goes, so yeah, I did a bunch of Beatles records. Damn. And
amazing.
At that time though, it was all about fucking getting as much volume as possible. Now, I think people are just burnt out on that. It just doesn't sound good.
Well, it causes a lot of ear fatigue too, because
Yes.
it's always constant.
It's on 10 all the time.
10 all the time, and your ears
Yep.
get tired of it.
Yep.
All right, cool, Jim. This was this was a blast. But yeah, we'll do some more stuff.
Okay.
It's all cool. But yeah, there's a show here. It's just I just need to tweak it a bit, probably.
Okay.
All right, cool. Well,
All right.
I'll send out some dates to you.
Thanks, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, it's fun. See ya.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.